So for all the parabolas today, the center is going to be at the origin. 2 or 3 videos from now, we'll switch the center to anywhere. So all these going to have a center at the origin. What's the parabola looks like? Let me just see if I can do one here. Here we go. Could look something like this, opening to the left, or it could be opening to which way? To the right. That's what a parabola is. Or it could open upward, one piece, it's not both. Could look like this, or it could look like this.
It's just half a circle.
Well, it's not half, it doesn't have to be half a circle. I can erase some of that. I just threw it that much. Could be this big. You know? So they don't have to be half a circle. Like you have a dish at home, TV dish, anyone has a TV dish? That's like a parabola. Or the parabola could open up or down. And I'll write some stuff on them shortly. So it could open up or down. So this could open down here, like this. Or it could open up. And each one of these have a difference. So it's this or that, this or that. It's not both. So I'll put or here. When do you have the graph left and right versus up and down? How do you know if you have this graph either to the left or to the right? Or up or down? Well, that's easy. You look at the equation that's given to you. If the equation is written as y squared equals 4px, we'll talk about what p is in a minute, it's going to be this shape, either this or that. But if it was x squared equals 4py, it will have that shape. One this or that. So here x is the squared, here y is the squared. Again, how do you know if it's opening to the left or is opening to the right? You do the math. If p is greater than 0, it's going to open to the right. If p is less than 0, it's going to open to the left. How do we know if it's up or down when it's like this? If p is greater than 0, it's going to open up. If p is less than 0, it's going to open down.
Can you just go back to the last one?
I will. Now, what is P here? I keep talking about P, P, P. If this is a mirror and you shine a light at it, what will happen to the light? It will reflect. Right? If you shine light at this one, I'll draw a couple of beams at it. Let's say this is a flashlight, you take and shine at that. Once it hits that surface, it's going to reflect. It's going to bounce like this. And where all the beams meet, that's where P is. So P is really our focal point. So if you have a TV If you have a dish TV at home, your receiver sits right there. Because they want to make sure as the signal comes in, it bounces through that, it hits that receiver. If you're working on the roof, by mistake, you hit that, now you're not getting the right channel. It's not clear, it's not focused, because you're missing a lot of these signals. All of these beams, if it's done right, they're supposed to bounce through that point. All of them should bounce through that once it hits the wall. If I draw one going that direction, it should come out, all of them going through that.
No matter where it lands, it will always hit that point.
It should come out if it's designed right. Yep. That's your focal point. You know. We use that actually with our glasses. Most of us wearing glasses. If you're nearsighted, I'm going to walk away from this math for a second. If you're nearsighted, your eye, if you look at your pupil like this, and this is the wall. So ideally you want the picture, let's say you're looking at a candle there, you want that image to show up right here. You draw that image upside down, our brain can flip it. But we see things upside down. Now our brain will flip that. You want it to land right there. What happens if you're nearsighted? That image is not showing up here, it's showing up here. Closer, forward, that's not good. And if you're farsighted, that image is showing up right here, far away. So we use what we call converging and diverging lenses. Converging, they bring them in, diverging and push them out. So if you're using that one, we need to push that out. So we might get a lens that looks like this. And instead of the beam being like that, now we'll push it farther away to make it land right there. And if you're nearsighted, if you're farsighted like this, you're seeing things far away, we get a converging lens, and a converging lens will look something like this. So instead of the picture being here, now we pull that picture closer. The glass will bring it in, and you get to see it right there. But we deal with focal point. That's the focal point where they're going to meet. So we design the lens where the focal point for that is going to be right there, which means all the beam is going to meet right there. It's the same thing with this. As the light goes through this, all these beams are going to bend into that spot. That's the focal point. Nothing to do with math, but just interest there. So that's our focal point. That's where P is. How far from the wall? How far from the edge? Now that's an important piece for us, because when I said, well, P is positive, is going to go to the right, the next question becomes, okay, this is going to the right. Or I can have one that looks like this. That's also going to the right, right? Or I can have one that looks like this. All of these have P greater than 0. So which one of them is the right picture? Then we have another piece to look at. It's called Directrix. And that's a line right there. And that's the line right here. So this line is called Directrix. What's the point of this line? If this is my focal point, P, what the Directrix is telling us, if you pick any point on the graph, any point, the distance, like for example, let's say I'm looking at the middle one. If I pick that point, if this is the right graph, that distance from here to here should be the same distance as to here, to the Directrix. Does that look like the same distance? It looks like the inside one is longer, right? So that says, oh, maybe it should be closer toward the inner one. Maybe I'll use this. Let's use that graph there. Let's measure the distance from here to there. Any point on that. Is that distance equal to this?
Definitely closer.
So that looks like the inner one is the right one. The outer one doesn't look like it's the right one. Because if you measure that distance from any point to this, is that the same distance? No way. So it's not that one on the outside. This one a little bit close, but it's not. That looks a little bit better. So my graph will be the smaller one out of them. So that's the significance of the directrix. That tells us how tight the graph or how open it is. So let's look at some of the examples given to us. So we have to decide if it's going to open up or down, or left or right. There's an example. X squared. That's an example here. X squared equals 4y. Does that look like y squared equals 4px? Does it match this one? No. Because x is a square, not y, so it's not this format. Could it be this format? So the graph is either going to be up or down. So when you compare the two equations, I'll go, you know what? That number here must equal to 4p. So what is p going to be here?
1.
P is going to be 1. Is that a positive or a negative? Positive is going to open which way? Up. So I know it's going to be that graph. So let's look and see. So I already established it's going to open upward just like this picture. So let me draw a line here. A little picture, get it started. We say it's going to open upward, and the focal point is going to be 1 unit above that, right? That's where the focal point, that's where P is. So this is 0, 1, the coordinates for it if you need it. X is 0, Y is 1. Why 1? Because P is 1. The center of your graph is going to be here. It's going to be opening upward. My directrix now is going to be the distance from here to there has to be the same distance to the directrix. So my directrix has to be right there. So the equation for that y equals what? Negative 1. Because the distance from here to there has to be the same distance from here to there. Why? Any point on the graph, like the center, has to be the same. The focal point and the directrix have to be the same distance. So if this point, if I pick that point, that's only 1 unit. That means this has to be 1 unit away. Now the question, I can start playing with multiple graph going, is this the one? Is that the one? I know it opens upward. And I can start guessing, playing games with it. Go, okay, could be something like this. Could be something like that too. So which one is it? I don't want to spend 6 hours trying to figure out which one's the graph. What I figured last time, what's the distance from here to here? 2 units, right? Let me go 2 units to the right. 1, 2. I want my graph to go through that point. I want the distance from here to there to be 2, that distance to be the same. So now let's see which graph. Let me erase the stuff there. And let's redo it. But make sure it goes through that point. So I'm going to adjust. I'm going to play with my gizmo here. Nope. Not yet. See, I'm playing with it. Oh, close enough. Perfect. Now again, I said twice that. Why? Because what's the distance from here to there? Isn't that 2 units? And I want that distance has to be 90 degrees to the directrix here. That distance has to be the same. So if that's 2 units, this is 2 units, that gives me the same distance. So I know how sharp that opening now. Yes?
How do we get the 4 on the left side of the equation at the very beginning?
That's the equation.
Just to give an equation.
That's the equation given to you. 4y.
So the given was x squared equals 4y.
Correct.
And the next step it says 4.
Yeah, because you compare it to this one. You try to match it with that. So when you match it with this standard form for that, should be 4x squared equals 4 py. Well, x is x, square is square, y is y. When you compare them, the 4 has to be equal to 4p. So what's p equal to? 1.
4p equals 4.
I mean 4p is 4, yep, p is 1. So once I have that, I know my graph is going to open up. And I know the vertex, or the focal point, as the vertex, by the way. At the origin, that's the focal point, 0, 1. My focal point is 0, 1. Directrix is going to be 1 unit below that. So that's 1 unit above. This has to be 1 unit below that. And that's my graph. Looks like this. Why that? Because that's 2 units this way, 2 units down that way. I can do another one.
So that's the answer too?
Yeah, that's the graph. Yep.
So you're doing 2 times 2 to get the 4? Or?
Well, twice that distance. Twice this one, which is what? That's the distance from here to there. So I go to the right, whatever the length of that, and that will tell me actually where the graph should go through. So if that's a 3 for here, that would be a 6, then you go. I'll give you another one. Let's take, what was it, x squared there? So let me take another one. Y squared equals negative 8x. Now the form I'm trying to match is this form, right? It's y squared. So my form should be y squared equals 4px. And notice when you have y squared, it's going to be either left or right. It's not going to be up or down when it's y squared. It's going to be one of these two. So left or right, it depends on p. Now you compare the two of them together. That tells me what? Negative 8 must equal to what? 4p, which means p will have to be negative 2. Now let me graph it. Then it's negative. I know it's going to open which way? To the left, right? So the graph of the sun is going to be here. So my focal point is going to be 2 units to the left. Let me use my ruler here. I'll use half and half. That's 2 units to the left. That's where the focal point is. If the distance from here to there is 2 units, then my directrix is going to be on the right side. And how far should be? 2 units. So there's my directrix right here. What's the name of this equation? X equals to what? To 2. Because it's going up and down. Now, to find out how tight it is, if this distance is 2, from here to there will have to be what? 4. So let me take my gizmo here and make sure that distance is 4. So it should go through that point. I'm going to play with my gadget till we make sure it goes through that point. Close enough. Here's my graph. Oh, I forgot what it was. I don't know. Close enough. I missed it, but close enough. Notice if you measure that distance from here to here, and you measure that distance, they should be the same. They look like almost the same distance. So that is the right graph for it. No, yep,
You went up 4, right?
yep, twice, whatever, twice that number.
So you find out what the distance is between the 2 points, and then you use that to go up.
From here to here.
And then equal.
Yeah, because you know my graph, I'm going to be going straight up, right?
Yes.
So that distance from here to there is going to be that distance from here to here.
Okay.
So if this is 4 units, I need to go up how many? 4 to make sure that distance is the same distance. And I know you might be saying, who cares about this stuff? Where are we going to use it? Well, I'll give you an example. The Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco. The Golden Gate Bridge looks something like this. You get these pillars in the water, sticking above. So you got water down here. This is really water there, if you've never seen it. And you're going to be driving over that bridge there. And the way it's designed, it's a suspension bridge. It looks like this. Has a parabola shape. And it has all these beams going up there. So the engineer who designs that is symmetric. This is the center. We know a few things about that bridge. That the distance from this end to that end is 4,200 feet. That distance is 4,200 feet. And we know the height of it is 300 feet above. So this height here is 300 feet. And they're going to cut all these beams before they ship them actually to them. They're going to be pre-cut. Just got to weld them and get going with it. So somebody got to find what the equation of that. Well, what shape do we have? We have a parabola, concave, and opening which way? Up. Let me look at my notes. It can't be y squared because that'll be pointing left and right. We're in trouble. Could it be one of these? So it has to be that format. X squared equals 4py. Okay. So now we need to figure the equation for it. I need to know what P is. Because if I know what P is, I can calculate every single thing about it. So I'm going to treat this as a parabola right there. And there's the y-axis. I'm going to put it right smack in the middle. And this is the x-axis. So that engineer who built that had to do all this math, sit in their desk, go, okay, this is x and that's y. I need 1 point on that bridge. Because if I know 1 point on that bridge, I know what P is. So let's take this point, the top. Do we know what the coordinates of that point is? How far in the x direction? How far is it to the right? 2100. Why 21? Half of that. And how high is it?
300.
Use those numbers for x and y to get you p. 2100 squared equals 4 times p times y. Y is what? 300. Can I solve for p? 1200p equals, where's my calculator here? I wasn't planning on using calculators today, I guess. Oh, it must have been there.
Just happened a little longer.
Yep, it's probably here. Oh, yeah. I like keeping sliding on this chair, you know. What's 2100 squared?
4,410,000.
Yep. 4410000, 4 zeros. So you divide by 1200. What's p equal to? 3675. I can tell you right now, the equation that describes the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco is, we know the equation, is x squared equals 4 times p. What is p? Notice p is positive. It's opening upward. 3675 times y. $14,700 y. What's the big deal about this? You might be saying, you know what? I'm going to put a beam here. This beam is going to be, I don't know, from here to here, let's say it's 200 feet. The next beam here is going to be how far? 400 feet from the center. Can you tell me how tall the beam should be? How high? So we can go through the math. We know what x is. Can you find y? The first beam at 200. Put in 200 here. What's 200 squared divided by 14,700? That beam has to only be 2.72 feet high. You need two of them. Why two? Symmetric. One on the left, one on the right. They cut two of them. They know the angle. They can just bring it, connect it, ready to go. Next beam is going to be 400 feet away. What's 400 squared? Equals 14,700y. $400 squared divided by 14,700. Those beams are 10.88 feet. Bring me two of these. Where's the next one is going to go? Where's the next one is going to go? So everything is delivered to them and done pre-cut before. I just read an article, a 6-lane bridge was built in 3 days over water. They blocked the traffic for 3 days. They brought the stuff already pre-cut, the piece already done, connected it, had it running in 3 days. 6-lane bridge.
I'd be nervous to go on that bridge.
Trust me, these people know what they're doing. The concrete was poured in before, I'm sure, for the foundation. They don't have to stop. They replace an old bridge. So they just, they pour the foundation, get it ready. Once they get it ready, they brought the barge in, they start connecting.
This one up here in New Hampshire?
I forgot what it was, actually.
How long was the bridge?
It was a decent size. It wasn't like something like 500-600 feet long. It wasn't a short one. 3 days. It wasn't state employees doing it. Maybe. It wasn't state employees doing it. That's why I always said. Yeah. So that's actually how we use some of the places for it, you know? You can even use it for clearance, like sign for an overpass. You know? You're trying to figure out, okay, how far should I make the road stick out? Because, you don't want somebody to go through underpass there and kill themselves there. I see this all the time. I used to live, I don't live that far from Bollard. If you know Bollard in Springfield, they have the train track right above. It looks like this. They just fixed it finally. And it says clearance. You can't miss it. Here comes a truck, 40, 50 miles an hour. Boom, hits it, and now we're stuck in traffic, everyone. I happened to be behind one time when they hit it. They ripped the whole top off. Now you can't go anywhere because everyone behind you. You're trying to get out, you're stuck there. It's actually neat how they pull them out. Anyone ever seen it? Deflate the tires.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it goes down, back it out, inflate the tires, and drive it out. Yep. But now, yep, you want to do something like this. You say, okay, how wide this one is. Let's say this is, I don't know, I'm just making numbers, from here to here, 30 feet. And let's say the height of this is 15 feet in the middle, right smack in the middle. And I'm going to pour concrete here because I want to make sure my clearance here, I want to make sure that's where nobody actually drives in this section. People can walk through it, but I don't want a car going through it. So how far should we go in this direction to make sure that clearance here is this high? What's most trucks are? 13, so let's say I want 14 feet, right? So I want to make sure this point, the height is 14 feet. That's not going to be wide enough, The way we did the math is going to be a skinny road. So hopefully it's more than 30 feet this way. So now I put my axes right there. Do the same thing. Again, that's up and down, right? So which equation we use? X squared equals 4py, yes. And again, to find P for that little overpass, I need to pick a point on the graph. I can use this point. If I use that point, what is X equal to? What's the distance from here to there?
13. No, 15.
15. And what's the height?
0.
Well, no, I'm using this as reference. Remember, the vertex always, where's the center?
Oh.
Negative 15. Right? P better be negative when I do the math, because it's pointing down. That's 15 feet below. If it's my center there, that's my x-axis right here. There's my y-axis. What you're looking at here is the road. When I design this, I use the top as my x, and that's my y. So now we have 1 point, x is 15. 4 times, what's P? We're looking for it. What is Y?
Negative 15.
And P equals negative what? 3.75, I think. Where's my calculator? $15 squared.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to turn on. So that's correct. So what's the equation that describes that underpass? X squared equals 4 times that number. Is that negative 15y? Actually, maybe not. Maybe more than that. Is it?
Yeah, it's 15.
Is it 15? So that's the equation that describes. It says, well, I want my height to be 14 feet from here. That means when you measure it from the top, what's that distance here? If that's 14. Isn't that a negative 1? Has to be 1 foot below that. Because you're measuring the height from this level. Because I want from the ground to be 14, that means from the top is 1. The whole thing was 15. So you let now y be negative 1, you solve it for x. Can you get what x equals to? The square root of 15. We're in trouble. I don't think we can fit any car on it. 3.87 plus or minus. Both. But I mean, that distance from here to there has to be 3.87. And that distance here, what? Negative 3.87 still. So if you have any truck that's wider than twice that, they can't go through that.
8 feet.
Truck is 8 feet? Got a problem. I got to push that a little bit farther. You know? But somebody has to sit down and figure all that stuff. Maybe if I did the 13.6, I might be okay. I'll be actually okay because the truck has to go through the center of that because it's so skinny. You know? But somebody will figure these calculations, tell me, you know what? We need to make sure if there's 30 feet, you only have 4 feet here, 10 feet of concrete high area so you can't drive over it. Nobody can drive over it. But that's what civil engineers do. Just something to think about. I think it's cool stuff what they do. You know? Then you go to the site and you check and see what they're doing. If it's a nice, beautiful day,